Hello, and welcome to the HistoryThon. It's a walkathon to support education, and particularly education about African American history. My name is Malcolm Cawthorne. I work at Brookline High School in Brookline, Massachusetts. Been a history teacher there for 22 years. The last 2 years, I've been a METCO Coordinator, but I still teach. And I've been involved with a lot of things at Brookline High School as well as the town. I live in the town. I do a lot of work with local history as well as diversity inclusion. And even what feels like a lifetime ago, I was the varsity women's basketball coach and the varsity football coach. I'm so thrilled to be with you here today. And I'm so glad you decided to participate in the Historyathon. I've worked with Primary Source for the last 9 years. I've taken countless courses with Primary Source, the first being the China Studies program in 1999. Primary Source has been so influential in my teaching practice, and I'm always grateful when I have the opportunity to give back to Primary Source and to other educators for what is something I feel is super valuable and really high impact for my teaching practice. One of the things for this Historyathon, you're going to learn through experiential walks and visiting local places. Um, for me, it is that idea of experiential learning that is the thing you're going to grasp and hold on to. You're going to be observing and interacting with places to deepen not just your understanding, but also your learning process. Hopefully, you'll be able to integrate experiences that facilitate reflection as well as discussion. And hopefully, they'll also lead you to think about the local environment, one's role in it, and that historical role within that local environment. One of the things I would say is really important as you start to think about, you know, what's going to maximize my experience in the Historyathon. You have to be that educator that we all like to talk about and that we like to teach about in terms of being ready, right? You have to think about, how am I going to get prepared? Read about the walks, the sites you plan to visit. You have the brilliance of Google as well as all the resources that Primary Source has given to you. Think about all those things, and think about those things in particular on the African American trail maps that you intend to follow. Do the preview of the HistoryThon discussion guide. Let it lead you as you go through the experience, as you prepare for the experience, as well as after the experience, right? When you have those discussions, whether those are with family members, a person you do the walk with, or perhaps as you go back to your various institutions of education. Be prepared in the idea of bringing the maps you need. Think about tech age. Perhaps those are on your phone, or perhaps you're like me. I actually still like to hold paper when I walk around. Wear your wristband so you can show solidarity. Perhaps take a photo of it. Think about keeping a record of your experience. Photos, videos. Use them on social media. Tag Primary Source them at Primary Source. And think about all those things as you go along for a full-blown experience that you are ready to have and ready to celebrate. In addition, I want you to think about, this is really different than, say, having a guided tour or visiting a museum. I think as a history instructor, there's a lot of times I go on tours that are self-guided and things like that. I think for most of us, what we really want to think about is how we can take these experiences and make them our own and then bring them back to our educational settings. And so it's really important to think about that along the path as opposed to being a passive participant, say, listening to someone else or just observing artifacts or things in a museum. In particular for African American history, it's important to remember that, for much of this country's history, that side of US history was not valued. And so there will be times that things will be hidden, sometimes in plain view, but also sometimes from actual view. And so it's important to know that sometimes this is difficult. Sometimes it is actually difficult to find those locations, even if you are carrying those paper maps and have your phone and things like that. And so we don't want you to get frustrated on those. We want you to recognize that appreciating these alternate sites as well as alternate narratives make for a rich local, state, and national history. We want you to connect all of those, thinking about the many sites that are important to African Americans and why those aren't marked, why they don't have the same sort of things that we've shared, enriched, and held in pristine condition. Being from Massachusetts, I think about, we knew to maintain Lexington Green in that pristine condition for 300 plus years. We knew that then, and we've left it that way, right? And so, how do we keep those things moving and shaking, as well as how do we perceive those things that we did not keep, that we did not value at one point, right? One of the things I would say too is you're going to have to use creativity. This is true for all history, but I think it's particular to African American history. There will be times you will be standing in places that are historical landmarks that have no markings or even any remnants of past historical prominence. So I do some work for Hidden Brookline, which is one of your walks. And at one point, you'll be standing on Boylston Street. And that's a really important place. And I don't want to give too much away about why you're going to go to Boylston Street. But one of the things is the street is just the marker to talk about the person and why he's important in African American history. You are going to have to be creative to think about why he is so important that they would actually name the street after him. Why would we connect that to the walk? What purpose does he serve in Brookline and greater than that? How is he connected in all these ways? And so you're going to need to do that and be creative in that moment to recognize when you stand on that street that the street is the marker to help you think about the history. And it is an important thing to do as you move through this, as well as use the discussion guide to help prompt those thoughts and that creativity. Ultimately, the HistoryThon is to help raise funds for teachers like me. Primary Source is going to use the funds to help with African American history. They're going to use the funds to really make sure to update a wonderful resource, Making Freedom, African Americans in U.S. History. It is an invaluable resource that has loads of primary sources and other kinds of connections to help teachers in the classroom foster that narrative that isn't brought to light very often. And before the New York Times, before others really started cherishing this 1619, Primary Source was putting out these documents for us teachers to use, dating back to 1619 and going through to the present. These need to be updated, digitized, making them accessible in an era of a pandemic where perhaps you can't go to visit the offices in Massachusetts and you need to access these. And that's what this money is going towards. These resources will make all of us better teachers. They will make all of us have that wealth of primary source documents that our kids need and that we need as history teachers to bring our history to life. I hope you enjoy this time, this day. I hope this starts you on a path of doing these type of tours and walking throughout your life, perhaps when you visit a city, or perhaps when you go to another part of your state. You use these to help learn about others and other narratives. Hopefully, today is paving the way to that experiential learning and understanding that we can all bring back to our kids, to our classrooms, and to our institutions. Thank you. Enjoy the day. Have a good experience. And thank you, Primary Source.